I saw a lot of good slopes, negative 0.00404. I saw that all over the place. I saw some point slopes. So we might be making a few mistakes, but I'm seeing progress. So that's encouraging. So on numbers 1, 2, or 3, any elements or items up there that you want to discuss as to why it is what it is? Mason?
I got 56.
You got 56. So instead of 55?
Yeah.
So that's not really a question.
You know what? I just don't know where I went wrong.
Did you look back at your previous step? Did you have a 48 and a 7?
Yeah.
So I think you just made a simple addition error. 48 plus 7 has to end in a 5, right? Because 8 plus 7 is 15. I think you actually did 48 plus 8, because that would be 56. Or maybe you did 49 plus 7. I'm not sure. But it sounds like you did all the algebra stuff right. It was just like that last little addition piece that got you. By 1, yep. Okay, what else? 1, 2, or 3? I think we should do number 4 together, but let's do 1, 2, and 3. Any other questions on 1, 2, and 3? Mason?
I got m equals 44,700 over 19.
So I think you flipped it. So slope should be change in the y's divided by change in the x's. And I think what you did is you did the change in the, you did it the other way. I don't even want to say it. I think what you did is you, I'll put it like this. I think you must have flipped your numerator and denominator around. Because if you had negative 19 in your denominator, and you had...
So it would be negative 19 over 47?
No, negative 19 should be in the numerator, right?
So then why is it 0.0040?
So I went ahead and I divided. I took that negative 19 and divided by 4,700. So I used my calculator at that point, and that's why I came up with kind of that crazy decimal. But I think the bigger issue that if you take care of, you'll be all right, would be with your slope, it needs to be delta y over delta x. Like y is closer to the sky, right, because it's in the top. If you're in the ground, you're x'd out. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways to think about that.
For number 3,
yep.
How did you get the number 106.28?
Sure. So this right here, I'm highlighting, that is point slope form. So what I did to go from there to the finish line is I distributed this. So on my calculator, I did that negative 0.00404 number. I took that times negative 6,500. And then what I did is I added 80 to both sides. So I distributed that slope, and whatever I got, I just went plus 80. And that's what got me to that 106.28. Trevor, I feel like it just clicked for you. Am I right? Okay.
I got 106.26. That's still right.
So it depends on where you're supposed to round to. So what I did is I got the number in my calculator. Like I've got that negative 0.00404 ... right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept the whole number in my calculator. I didn't round it off at all. I took that times 6,500 and then I added 80. So I would say if the instruction said, round to the nearest tenth, I think you'd be okay. If it said round to the nearest hundredth, you would not be okay.
So just wait.
So the lesson learned would be don't round at all until the very end.
Right.
That way you're as accurate as you could possibly be
Mm-hmm.
with the tools we have. Yeah. Okay. The fact that you got to that point is very encouraging. It means you're handling the linear equation really well.
Thanks.
So that's great. Okay. What else can I do to help you guys? Yeah, we'll definitely do number 4. On 1, 2, 3. Okay, so number 4, here it is. I'm going to use my numbers just like I directed you to. So here, walking around, gosh, let me just say it like this. I know for a fact that I don't know everything. I've established that. Well established. I don't know everything. However, my experience tells me that drawing a picture here is best. Okay? I think, and you might struggle getting the picture down, That's okay as long as you're trying and you're getting better. But you've got to draw a picture. And the only way you're going to be able to draw a picture is if you actually read this like a story and say, what's happening? So could I summarize this for you? Abby and Candace are going skiing, probably. They're going to their mountain house at least, right? And one of them gets a head start. Abby gets a head start. Candace leaves a little bit later. And we're wondering if Candace is going to catch up to Abby before they get to the mountain house or not. Would you agree that that's the story? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little starting line here. It's going to represent their house. And I'm going to say that Abby gets a head start. And so before we even start really paying attention here, Abby gets out in front and she's taken off towards the mountain house. I'm going to call this the distance of Abby. So before we even start paying attention, Abby's jumped out into the lead, right? So Candace, later on, an hour later, I think. Yep, an hour later, Candace takes off from the same place, from their house, I should say. And she takes off and she tries to catch up to Abby. And we're wondering where that catch-up point would happen, like when that would happen. That'll help us answer this question. So from a really basic, almost like elementary school level drawing, do you see how that would be the picture? And I'm not trying to overcomplicate this at all yet. I'm just saying who got a head start and who didn't, right? That's basically it. Okay, so I really think that you should have this picture drawn at some point or another, and if you do, that's awesome. Now the next level would be to ask yourself, all right, well then, how big of a head start did Abby really get? What would you say? Yeah, wasn't she going 50 miles per hour for 1 hour on her head start? Yeah. So I would say that Abby's head start is right here, and it would be 50 miles. 50 miles. Okay. So far, so good? Okay. So everything is distances here, right? Did you notice I never wrote 75, I never wrote 50? Everything is about how far something is as far as in miles. So, can you take a look at this now? This is where sometimes this is a challenge. We need to take the stuff in my picture and we need to try to relate it, aka an equation. The only requirement is it's got to be true. So you can't do this. If you wrote dA equals DC, can't we tell from what we read and from the picture that that is just plain old false? Those two distances are not the same. So I can't do that. Did anybody come up with a good relationship? Anya, what do you think?
DC equals 50 plus DA.
Mason, what do you think of that? You had your hand up at the same time as Anya. Do you agree with that or disagree?
I agree.
You do agree. Other thoughts? Agree or disagree? Two people at least think it's that. Let's analyze. So do you see how what Anya and Mason did is they took the shorter distance. They took the shorter distance. They added that little gap, that little head start, and they said that that was equivalent to the longer distance. And again, this is where this is a real challenge because you guys are so used to math class being step 1, step 2, step 3 process, right? I'm asking you, in your brain, does this, on the left side of your brain essentially, does this seem logical? Does this make sense? I hope it does, because I think it's totally logical as well. Great job. Okay, so we've got a nice statement written up there having to do with the distances involved. Now what we need to do is remember that distance is the same thing as what times what?
Distance is
Rate
the
times time. There we go. Yeah, we want to have that for sure. So Candace, she is going 75 miles an hour on average, and so we're going to say that her distance is 75 times time equals 50 plus, what would you guys put in place of dA? 50t, yeah, because Abby's rate is 50 and she's going for t hours. Okay, so I'm hoping that when you look at this, you think, hey, that's an equation that I could solve, because it definitely is. Okay, so this gives me 25t equals 50. Division then tells me that t is equal to what? 2. Okay, so the question is, will Candace catch up to her sister? So according to this, it would take her 2 hours to catch up. And really we have to decide is, where is the mountain house relative to this catch point, right? So if the mountain house is like out here somewhere, and she caught up to her, to the left there, she definitely caught up to her. But if the mountain house is like right here, doesn't that mean that Abby beat her to the house? So if Candace traveled for 2 hours to catch up, can anybody say how many miles Candace actually traveled to catch up? 150, right? Wasn't Candace going 75 miles an hour?
Yeah.
So distance of Candace was 75 times 2, which is 150 miles. So she's going to catch her after only going 150 miles. How far away is the mountain house? Mountain house is 190. So because 150 is less than 190, we would say that Candace, unlike yesterday, Candace will catch up. With how many miles to spare? 40 miles to spare, right? Still got to go another 40 just to get to their mountain house. Okay. So, hey, I'm fully aware that some of you absolutely nailed this and got it right. I'm also fully aware that we have the, group of people that are like in process, that aren't there yet. So I hope that you feel at least a little bit better about this today. Yes. Any final questions about Candace and Abby before we leave them alone for the day? Bless you. Okay. So, here